Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another podcast episode. We have our guest here, Lumi Ispas. She is a real estate agent, but also real estate investor now, and she's generated tons of cash flow monthly. I think over like 15,000 now. She has many different portfolios, a lot of experience just going through like mistakes, a lot of wins. And so I want to bring her on and kind of help guide everyone through just the process of getting involved in multi-unit investing, how to overcome challenges, and then with the recent NAR settlement and changes, just how to navigate that as like a new investor now. So Lumi, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to start off first and foremost. Can you tell me a little bit about your background, like how you got started and your journey there?
Sure, we'll keep it short. As you can imagine from my accent, I am an immigrant. Moved to the United States in March 2000 with about $200 in my pocket and 2 suitcases. Left a business, very successful business back home, so wanted to make it in this country. Didn't know more than 5 people, and I was looking for a business idea, for something to do. I did not want to work for a company. Barely spoke English, didn't go to college, so I really didn't have a simple path, an easy path. And I started reading. You know, I always say the most valuable card in your wallet is the library card, right? And start reading about businesses, about investment, how to make it. And after a while, I noticed a trend. Pretty much every book, if it was IT, if it was creating new businesses, if it was whatever it was, at the end had a chapter that said, and then I invested the money in a building. I bought a 4 flat, or I bought a 6 unit, or I bought a commercial building. And then I was reading a book about Andrew Carnegie, and he had a quote he mentioned there. He said, up to 90% of all millionaires make or grow their fortune in real estate. And that's when it clicked for me. So I thought, wow, that's it. I'm not the brightest in the bunch, didn't go to college. 9 out of 10 millionaires make it through real estate. This is it. I don't need to break, to recreate the wheel, right? So that's how I chose real estate. It happened within probably less than a year from the moment I was here. I was already interested in real estate because my ex-husband was doing flooring, and he was in real estate invested. So we were thinking about buying something, but not as a business, if it makes sense. So that was the start. Then I worked for a property management. I started working for property management, which taught me a lot about how to choose tenants, how to manage the property. So I've learned a lot from that point of view, and got to see who the investors were. Because my expectation was, the big real estate investors are going to show up, like what you see in social media. Big expensive car, money suits, and they owned multiple buildings. They had tens of thousands a month in cash flow, but they did not look like what you would have, not you, but society gives the impression of the successful person. Because a successful person is not really what they're dressing, right? So that was my start. Then I got my real estate license because I could not figure out how to learn it. I was asking people at the management company. They did not know how to teach me. They were saying the recurring phrase was, the numbers have to work when you buy a building. I was like, what does that mean? The numbers have to work. What does that mean? And they were like, Lumi, you'll know. I was like, okay, how am I going to know if I've never bought a building? And got my real estate license in 2002, thinking, okay, this is it. And then, of course, all I learned was don't break the law, right? And this is what you're supposed to do. So you don't use 90% of what you learn in real estate career. And I bought my first properties thinking I'm going to build properties. I'm going to, so that was the path that I took originally, bought properties that I was supposed to build on. Then 2007 hit. And by 2010, I lost my first portfolio. So I lost $1 million worth of portfolio, lost it. And wow. And I would say that was the best thing that happened to me. Now, in 2010, I was in full depression, right? And crying. So I did not believe that. I worked 60, 80-hour weeks for 10 years to create that. Missed out on my children growing up, right? My children were in my car every weekend, going to open houses, going to showings. And I would leave home when they were sleeping. I was coming home when they were sleeping. I was a single mom that was lucky to have my mom moving in with me to help take care of my children, my house, so I can just work nonstop because I had no other income. And like I said, the reason I say 2010 was what the best thing that happened to me is because that's when I really learned how to invest. In 2011, I was named the top 1% of realtors in Chicago based on the numbers of sell, which means I've sold more than 99% of realtors. What happened, there was a switch that changed in my head. I said, where I made a mistake. I was a realtor. I was already in the top 10%. How could I make such a big mistake in investing? And because I was selling short sales foreclosure properties that people lost, and also I was selling to the people that had money, I actually had a unique opportunity to have both the people that made it through 2007 and the people that lost 2007. So I had
You got to know both sides and see
yes.
what's working, what's not. Yeah.
Yes, most of the people focus only on what's working, and it's always a two-way street. You always have to focus on what you have to do and what you don't have to do. And to me, this is how I started analyzing. So I was pretty much interviewing every customer, even though they had no idea what I was doing, right? But I was asking them, what happened? Why are you here? And a lot of them, they didn't know why they lost their properties. They were just putting the fault on the bank. Oh, they gave me an arm loan, or they did this. And I was like, well, you signed a document, nobody did anything to you. You kind of
right.
signed on your own. I mean, you are a lender, you know how many documents you signed, but some of the people didn't understand what they were signing, but still, it could not be that 100% of people didn't know what they were doing. It's impossible, right? Statistically. And then I really start paying attention where things went wrong. And then I start paying attention to the people that had their portfolio and they were doing actually better in those years than the rest. And I say, okay, what's different? And it took me a while. It took me a number of years because it takes time to see the patterns, right? So I ask the same questions, similar questions, what you did, what you should have done, why you did it that way, what was your mindset, what was your beliefs behind that. And again, I think probably within a year, I start seeing the reason. And the number one secret of the people that can't hold on to their properties was they had positive cash flow on their properties. So, and that was why I lost my properties, because I had vacant lots or, empty building on double lots, and, they didn't bring me cash flow. So all expenses were from my pocket, and I was able to support them for 3 years because I had reserves, I had, retirement funds, so I cash out everything, my kids' college funds, like just hold on. But after 3 years, you couldn't hold on to, all those expenses. And while the people that hold on to their properties, they have positive cash flow. And Ben, let me ask you this. When the market goes through a tough time where buyers don't buy real estate, what happens to the rents?
They go up. A lot more demand for the rents.
So now you already have a property that's positive, that you have positive cash flow, and the rents go up. So how are you doing if you are a smart landlord? You're doing even better.
You're doing right.
You're doing spectacular. Yeah. Now, so that was number one thing that I've learned: positive cash flow. Number two, these people had fixed rates. Remember, so they had positive cash flow with whatever rates they had. So it didn't matter, because of course, if the rates drop, you can refinance. But the issue is, most of the people could not refinance, even if they had good credit, because the prices have dropped. So now they didn't have enough equity to refinance, or some of them lost their jobs. Now, again, how could you refinance if you lose your job? So even though they're making their payments, so you're looking at the people that maybe they have fixed interest rate and they have positive cash flow. They could not lose a property in that case. The other people, they had ARMs and they didn't have positive cash flow. So as the interest rates were going up, now they were digging deeper and deeper in their pockets to cover up the payment.
Right, because those fixed rate investors were protected from the rates going up and fluctuating. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just that, because sometimes you say, oh, I'm going to refinance. Well, if you are in the position to refinance, I've seen an owner that had two buildings, one with 26 units, another one with 15 units, and pretty much had to sell them because otherwise we would have lost them to the bank. And they were doing great. Like they had plenty of cash flow, but they didn't qualify for the bank, and the bank didn't want chose not to renew the loan. So when the 5-year come up, the bank was losing on so many other loans. They said, no, you have to refi the loan. Well, this lady was retired. She could not refi, even though she had so much cash flow. The rates would have been lower. So she would have made even more money. The bank refused to refinance her because her credit was not where it was supposed to be. She was retired on her taxes. Of course, I guess she didn't want to pay taxes, so she didn't report all the income, whatever she did. She almost lost the properties. She was in short sale and she was able to sell them at one point. But imagine you had 10 grand a month or more in cash flow when you're losing the property because you can't refinance on a commercial loan. So it's very, very important to know what loans you get into, very important to have cash flow, when you buy the properties. And again, these were some of the top lessons I've learned. So as soon as I started reinvesting my next portfolio, now everything changed, right? And that's what
So
I
you,
clients.
right.
Hey, quick question for you. How much have you been loving these podcast episodes? I've been getting a lot of great feedback from you guys, and right here is where I typically put in an ad or something for these episodes, but you know what? I was thinking about it, and the only thing I really want to promote right now is for you to just hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to grow this thing out, and so many of you are watching, listening, and sharing, but you're not subscribed to the channel, so please hit the subscribe button, and that's really going to allow me to grow this thing and continue to provide value for you guys. Let's get back to the episode.
Right. So you had 2010 happen, lost everything, $1 million portfolio out the door. Then you became top 1%. You kind of learned the real estate game. Then you learned both sides of like, okay, let's see who's winning, who's losing, what are they doing well, what are they not? And then how did you start back up again? Like, what did you do to get back?
Great question. So in 2002, I think, I listened to Earl Nightingale. And Earl Nightingale has this recording, is the only recording to have ever won a Golden Globe that's non-entertainment. And it was recorded in 1957. And in this recording, he mentions how he defined the people at the top, like the most successful people. And, of course, we're talking about in terms of money here, because everybody's a success. Mom stays home with the kids, and that's all she wants to be. It's a success, right? A teacher that loves kids and wants to be a teacher, that's a success. But here we talk about money only, right? Like, how do you define in terms of income, or in terms of net worth, actually, let's put it differently, in terms of net worth, the most successful people in the country. And he digged into the IRS records, and what he found out was only 5% of people in the United States were able to retire comfortably. And we have to translate the dollar amount, 1957, I think it was 50,000. In about, when I found this out in 2001, 2002, whenever I listened to it, it was $1 million starting. Between $1 million and 5 million, it meant you being really well taken care of, and 5 million plus, you would have been like really wealthy, right? You will never spend all that money. And since we've had inflation, of course, the numbers have changed. But at that time in 2010, when I lost everything, I had to create a new plan. Because you see, when I started in real estate, I had the definition of having $1 million as a success in net worth. And I was focusing on that. Now, keep in mind, I just lost everything. I lost my home because of the investments, because I couldn't support all the mortgages. So I had to do a foreclosure. I had a loan right early on with a bank that wouldn't do short sales, because I tried to do short sales, and on this one, the bank just foreclosed, and I had a short sale in my credit. And then I have a bankruptcy in my credit, because after exhausting all my cash reserves, retirement funds, college funds for my kids, now I had to go onto credit cards, and I could not support it. Because again, I was selling $15,000 condos, and I was renting $700 rentals. I was making a third of what I used to make the year previous, and my expenses were 10 times higher, right? And I thought, okay, I have a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, a short sale in my credit. My credit score is now bad, right? I'm a self-employed realtor.
Oh,
From your point as a
good luck.
lender, I'm your worst nightmare, right?
Good luck. Yeah, right. Self-employed, bad credit. It's like, oh, good luck getting any financing.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck getting anything. And but what was interesting, though, remember when I said that I've learned a lot of things, and the number one thing was cash flow? Well, I also realized that my goal of becoming a millionaire, while it was great, and I had it in order to be able to retire without depending on my kids or the government, right? It was a good goal. That should not have been my first goal. I realized that I lost everything because I didn't have income coming in that would protect me in case of a bad economy. Because no matter how hard I work, if the selling price changes from $30,000, $300,000 to $15,000, now I make 20 times less money, right? So it's unbelievable. It's impossible to make it. And I realized that I want to invest for cash flow. My first goal should get enough cash flow to survive. So I call that financial security. So I created of course I had the budget. I think I had at that time, my budget was $3,500 a month. So I said, hey, if I can get $3,500 a month from my properties now, and 30-year fixed mortgages, unprotected. And I'm going to say something else. I'm going to add something here. I just said 30-year mortgages. Some of the people I did short sales for, they just refinance their 30-year loans where they had maybe 7-8 years payments on to 15 or 10-year loans. Their payment doubled, tripled, and they had arms. So they lost their homes because they didn't have 30-year mortgages.
Yeah. And what I tell people really quick before you keep going, like 15 years, sometimes are attractive and you're paying it off faster, plus the rate's usually better. The problem is that in case something happens, you're tied to that payment. What I tell people, because I have a lot of clients that could afford a 15-year, I say, go for a 30, make the payments as if it was a 15, because we can do the math, we can figure out how much extra. And then if some months are bad, some years are bad, now guess what? Instead of, you're committed to $4,000 a month, you really only need to pay $2,800 a month. Like that's $1,200 spread. So that's such a good point. That's so important.
That was another. So I said, if I get these properties this way, I'll be protected. So I created a plan for myself. So I said, well, I still have that goal of becoming a millionaire, right? And I still have the goal of now to make $3,500 a month to survive, right? So I know that no matter what happens, I get sick, whatever happens, right? The economy changes again, it's out of my control, I'm protected. And I created a plan. You see, I've been teaching seminars, real estate seminars, since right away as soon as I started, because immigrants didn't know how to invest. There were flippers out there, people want to buy radio. So I was doing seminars based on what people wanted. But in 2011, I started a seminar called How to Achieve Financial Freedom and Become a Millionaire, which was pretty much my own formula, right? Like what I did for myself. I said, all I want now is in the next 3 to 5 years to buy properties worth $1 million that will all have positive cash flow altogether to reach, if possible, $3,500 a month, and then let the tenants pay them off, right? So I'm going to get, by the time that the tenants pay them off, now I'm going to have $1 million that I didn't have to save for it, right? All I needed was a down payment. And remember, I'm coming from a short sale foreclosure bankruptcy. So I have to take the owner occupants, low down payments, because again, where am I going to get a down payments, right? From that point of view. And interestingly enough, Ben, number one reason why people don't buy real estate is a down payment. They don't have the down payment. So people that want to start investing, they say, well, I would love to invest, but where am I going to get that kind of a money, right, to invest? Because they are always thinking 25% down payment, right, for an investment. And I say, well, an owner-occupant, 3-4 unit building, you can get it with an FHA 3.5% down, you can get a conventional 5% down, and after all you have to live in the property is a year, right? So you can keep playing this game, buying owner-occupant every year if you want to, right, with another low down payment property. But in order for you to have positive cash flow, you cannot buy 1 unit or 2 units. It has to be 3 to 4 for the numbers to work. Because remember, the trick is you have to have positive cash flow. So I created that for me. Then I realized another thing. I mentioned to you that before that, I was talking constantly with the people that were losing homes. I was doing like 40, 50 short sales a year. Plus, I was talking to a lot of people that ended up in foreclosure, didn't do the short sale, right? So I will always ask them, what happened? What happened? Why did you get to short sales, right? So we said number one reason, not 30-year fixed, right? Like not the fixed rate. Second, not 30-year mortgage. Third, a lot of time people bought properties that were in bad shape, thinking that they would figure out how to fix them up. And I remember, and I could not forget this 4-unit building, gorgeous building. I mean, the cash flow should have been huge. And the seller was an older gentleman. he lived out of the cash flow because he was retired. He lived in the building. He had family in the building in 2 units, and the other 2 were rented. And they got the hole in the roof. I can't remember how or whatever happened, but they had the hole in the roof. The water is coming in the top 2 floors. The tenants move out because he has no money to change the roof. So now the tenants move out, and now he's going to foreclosure. And I said, well, hold on.
Wow.
Now I learned, right? Like I said, it was on my list of what am I going to avoid, right? What you have to avoid. And I said, well, how do I avoid that? I know I'm going to buy a building, and I know I'm going to have cash flow. I know I'm going to have a 30-year fix. I know I'm going to have an owner-occupant, low down payment, 30-year fix. But how do I get the money to fix it?
Fix it, right.
And I remember calling one of my lender, and I said, because one of my brightest ideas, right? At that time, there was no YouTube, no, internet was just brand new, right? It was no real estate education, no bigger pockets, right? Guys, I think Creative Real Estate Online website, that was the only thing online, and I was reading it voraciously for hours, right? Because that was all the thing, and I was buying no money down tapes from the late informationals, because that was the only thing, and Kiyosaki, right? That's all it was. And I remember, again, looking at it and calling my lender and say, hey, I'll backtrack a little bit. When I lost my properties, I had to move my kids, my family in a home, right? Now I have bad credit, no income. From a landlord point of view, who's going to rent me a place? So it was scary. Of course, I found one of my clients that I was renting for in a place, and I moved in, gave him 2 months security deposit, and asked her not to look at my credit, which she did. She trusts me. And it worked out, but that was scary. I said, I will never, ever put my family in that situation. No matter what happens, I would love to live for the income to cover my expenses. I would love to build. I would love to live for free, which is what's called today house hacking. Now, guys, I thought I invented that. Okay, true story. 2010, like I said, I lost my properties. I don't know what I'm moving, and I'm thinking I just come up with this bright idea, right, all by myself. So I called my lender at that time and I said, hey, how can I buy a big building where I can live for free? And he's like, well, as long as you have 25% down payment, you can buy a big building. I was like, well, I don't. It's like, okay. I said, what else you have? Keep in mind, up to 2008, 99% of people were taking no documentation loans. So I haven't heard yet that FHA loans, VA loans, I haven't heard of it because everybody was taking no money down loans, no documentation. And he says, well, there is this FHA loan. And you put only 3.5%. I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to go and get a 10-unit building with this 3.5%. And I'm a realtor, guys, and I'm a successful realtor in the top 10% at this point, right, by 2010 in the city. And he said, Lumi, you can buy only up to 4. Residentials are going all to 4. FHA doesn't go over 5. I was like, oh, that's new to me. He said, so buy, I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy a 40-unit FHA. And at that time, the rule was you had to have 3 years to be 3 years away from a bankruptcy, short sale foreclosure in order for anyone to give you one. So now I filed my bankruptcy in 2010. And now I know by 2013, like early 2013, I'm meeting the 3-year mark. So now I have a deadline, right? It's 2011. I have a deadline. In 2013, early, I'm going to buy an FHA. And I'm still thinking, how I'm going to fix it. And I called back the lender. I said, well, I have a little problem. If after I buy it, can you give me another loan, or how I'm going to fix it? It's like, I heard of these HELOCs. Is that possible? And he says, oh, no, hold on a second. You can do a renovation loan. Remember, haven't heard of it. I've been a realtor since 2002. This is 2010. Yeah. In 8 years, I have not heard of it because nobody was doing them. And actually, the renovation loan, at one point, they were not available. So they brought them back after the market crashed, right? So there were some years where they're not available. They brought them back. And now he says, yes, you can do a 2 or 3K renovation loan, and we're going to give you the money to buy it and to fix it up. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, how come nobody's talking about this? This should be, at the top discussion of any investor list. How come I never read of it? So now I have my plan, and I start sharing it with every person I'm talking to. And I end up being an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes on the phone about my plan of buying 3 properties in 3 years with all down payments, with FHA, with low down payments. I'm like, I have this plan. I buy $1 million worth of properties in 3 years. Tenants are going to pay them. and I'm going to live for free in my first one, and then I'm going to move to the next, and the rent on the first will pay me, and I'm going to get cash flow when I move to the next. And people are already vetting. And I start, like I said, teaching these seminars how to become a millionaire by buying at least $1 million worth of real estate, and how to become financially successful, and put a structure in how to avoid making the mistakes that the people in 2007 made, up to 2007 made, so you don't ever lose your property. So a long way of getting of how I got restarted. But again, you don't learn from success, guys. You never learn from success, because you have no idea what you've done and how you've done it, and if you're lucky or what you've done. You only learn from mistakes. So that's why I still think that by losing my first portfolio in 2010 really changed my life, and this other lives of my clients and the people I love.
So you learned, okay, so you understood, like, okay, so this is the millionaire formula. Buy a building to get positive cash flow, use forced appreciation or fix it up that way. I don't have problems with the building. I can keep my tenants, but also I can get top dollar for it. And now I'm attracting the top tier tenants. I have high quality people in there, and like you have the consistent rental income coming in with that. And so so you got excited, you figured it out. You're like, okay, this is the formula. You're teaching everybody. What advice would you have, or would you give for people that are looking to overcome that challenge of like the down payment? Because that's the biggest one, right? Like, I can get my credit on track, I could have like income coming in, I can get a job, 60, 80, 90,000 a year. Okay, fine. But like, any creative advice or strategies for people to be able to raise money for that 3.5% or 5% down?
So very good question. Now, if you take an FHA loan, the down payment can be a gift. So I've had so many young professionals where the parents gifted them the down payment, and then of course they gifted back later, right? Like, as they started receiving cash, they started gifting it back monthly to their parents, because it has to be a letter of gift. It cannot be a loan. So number one, gifts. If you can find gifts, do it. Like, if you have a family, and in today's society, actually, like pretty much especially the last 4 or 5 years, I can tell you a lot of the down payments come from the parents. And even if on 20-25% down payment, I'm seeing this day in and day out. So if you have parents, grandparents, somebody, boyfriends, girlfriends that can help with the down payment, do that. Second, there are a lot of grants available, but be careful with the grants, because if you intend to live in the property for a long time, if you intend to buy more properties right away, some grants are tied into you staying in the property for 10 years or a certain amount of years in the property. Now, of course, there are banks that will give you closing costs credit. So that's great, because, there are grants right now, like I said, from Illinois, like we're in Illinois. Each state, I assume that they have something, but there are grants from state, from federal, from churches, from nonprofits, from whatever. So look for the grants that are available, or down payment sources. I know you have a program, I think, with an FHA where you can get some grant, right? Where you get almost, you buy almost.
We'll cover the full 3.5% for 2 units.
Up to 2 units, right? But you see,
up to 2
again,
units.
that's the issue. If you buy only 2 units, the numbers are not going to work. You're not going to be able to live for free. You're not going to be able to get a lot of cash flow. So that's great for an occupant. So somebody that's like, it's happy, they just want to buy a property for themselves, then it's a great program. But for people that want to actually invest long-term and create a portfolio, that's not going to cut it for them, right? Because your whole point, and this is what I want to stress here, your first property, the way you buy it is going to determine your evolution as an investor. Because if this property doesn't have enough cash flow to offset that property completely out of your credit, you're not going to qualify for more loans. So it's very, very important to get the property at the beginning where 1 unit you get it for free, where 25% of income, of the total income, covers 75% or 100% of all the expenses, right? So this way you have 25% extra income, because keep qualifying for more properties. Hey, Ben, can you hear me?
Oh, I lost you. Okay, you're back. Gotcha.
So
you're saying?
Okay, so I was saying, I said it's very important to be very careful how you buy your first property, because if you don't have enough cash flow, you won't qualify to take more loans.
Yeah, and that's why I think the first one's the hardest for a lot of people is just learning the game, getting the money, getting the financing you need to be able to get to that point where you could start buying multiple, properties or house hacking at that point. And just now you kind of know the system, you know what to look for, how to get the right tenants, how to look for the right deal, things like that. One strategy that I've heard too is like, or that I've actually seen this done with some of my clients where they'll, and this only works if your friends are responsible, if you have a good group, but like they'll all chip in, right? They'll all chip in and they'll like move in one unit. So sometimes like a friend will have another friend help him, be the landlord or manage it. Like one idea is like your friend could manage the building, but you front the down payment, right? So you pay for the down payment, the other guy manages it. You guys kind of figure it out and split it that way. Of course, the revenue is not as much, but that's if you really want to fast track. If you really can't get any funding or any money from anywhere else, I've seen that as well. But like with that, what I wanted to ask you was like in the changes in the industry now with the NAR settlement, right, going on, how is that affecting like buyers and sellers, especially with like multi-units?
That's such a great question. But I just remember one more thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
401ks, IRAs. So I teach the people that don't have, a lot of savings, and you work for a year or 2 years to work your savings, put it in a 401k. You are not paying tax on this money, so you are saving all this money, and you are allowed to take 10,000 out of it, penalty-free, tax-free, towards your down payment, or you can even borrow more of it, but you'll have to pay back. So save it in a retirement account. That's another way to finance the payment. So let's go back to your next question. That's such a great question, and it's so actual today, right? So interestingly enough, I would say a lot of times the government of cities, of countries, of states, right? Because at each level things change, right? They change laws. They hope to protect a certain group of people, and what they do, a lot of times they don't. They make it more difficult for them. So this is exactly what happened here with the NAR. The sellers thought that they're going to save more money if they don't pay all commission, and if buyers will have to pay half a commission. Well, keep in mind, number one, the number one reason people don't buy real estate is what? We just talked about it, down payment. We're talking about getting together 3.5% of the down payment, right, for a down payment. How are we going to come up with another, 2.5 or 2 or 3, whatever the commission is of your agent? How are you going to come up with that, right? So you are eliminating a massive amount of buyers. I read somewhere that in the last few years, up to 40% of all the buyers were FHA. Think about it, up to 40%. So you are pretty much eliminating 40% of the market of the buyers. Now you get less buyers. What's going to happen to your price? What kind of
start going down?
Your price is going to go down because now you have less people writing offers. So number one, and remember, you bought it when you bought that property that you are selling now, you didn't pay a commission, right? So that in reality, you don't pay it when you buy, you pay it when you sell. So you it splits, right? And the funds that come in when you sell, it really comes from the buyer, right? That he's offering you more money. The other thing that the sellers have not realized, let's say you sell a property for $500,000, before this law. You sold it, you pay, let's just say 5% commission, because commission is not fixed, right? It's negotiable. But let's say 5%. That's $30,000. Well, if I'm going to write you an offer today and my buyer is going to pay me 2.5% commission, half of that, I'm not going to offer you 500. I'm going to take that 2.5 out of it. So you're netting the same amount of money as you would have netted before, and now you got only 60% of buyer coming to you if you get the 6%, because some people might choose not to come to you at all, right? So now you hurt yourself even more. So that's number one thing that happened. Number two, as a buyer, buyers had the freedom before to go to properties. Agents will show them properties without buyer agreements, even though by law, at least in Illinois, it said you should have a buyer agreement so buyers understand who's representing them, what's going on. Now you cannot show a property unless a buyer has a buyer agreement signed. So now you are tying down. Every buyer has to really truly decide who they're going to work with even before they see their first property. So now they have to, so the experienced agents, they're going to do more business because what will a buyer do now if they have to choose an agent before they even get to go out with them a few times? They will have to go by the agents that have, a lot of testimonials, they've been long time in the business, because they're forced to. So at this time, and again, they're in one way it's bad, but in the other way is great. And I'll tell you why it's great. I've met in the past a lot of investors. They're like, oh yeah, I'm working with an agent, whoever brings me the best deal. If you're an investor like that, I've been selling real estate for 22 years. I already have buyers, right, that are very loyal. They give me a lot of business. They buy with me, sell with me, they do it. And I find a deal. And of course, I find the deal of the century every week. Okay, so let's be serious. The deal of the century, it's on the market all the time. But I find a really good deal that's actually matching your requirements. And I have these clients that have buyer agreement with me. I've worked with for a long time. And then I have this investor that called me and said, hey, do you have any deals? No, I won't sign a buyer agreement with you because I want to see who's going to give me the deal. Who do you think I'm going to get a deal with? So that guy, I might give him the deal and he will take it to another agent, right? Versus, but why would I do that when I have a clear relationship where of trust, of building trust, of easy work? Why would I give it to that person? So in one way, the way the new law came in is actually going to help buyers. It's going to be a little bit tougher on your buyer brokers. And again, on even the word seller brokers, because they're not going to know how to explain to the seller that it's in their best interest to still pay a buyer agent. So if I have any sellers here, you want to understand that it's absolutely in your best interest to pay a buyer broker's commission because everybody will show the property.
Yeah, right. If you're refusing to pay, many won't even show. They're not even going to bother, many agents. I wanted to kind of before.
Ben,
go ahead.
Yeah, I want to share something with you. So you cannot refuse to show a property just because a seller doesn't want to pay commission. But what happens is when the buyer agent signs a buyer agreement with the buyer, he's going to have that conversation and say, Mr. Buyer or Mrs. Buyer, this is what's going to happen. We're going to have three situations here. My commission is X, right? Because it's negotiable. And we're going to have a situation A, buyer seller is choosing not to show not to pay a commission. Do you still want me to show you that property and you're going to pay me 100% of my commission? And some buyers are going to say, no, you are going to show me only or I can pay only up to this. Ask them if they will pay a closing cost that could cover that. If they won't, do not show me the property. Option B, they are going to pay me portion, you're going to pay me the other. You okay with that? And option D, they're going to be 100%, so there's no problem, right? But this is what's going to happen. So it's very important for buyers to understand how this works and for the sellers to understand how this works. Because if the sellers don't understand how buyer agreements think and what documents they sign and where they're coming from, they cannot make good decisions for themselves.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I appreciate that insight. Thank you for that clarification because that is really important. What would you say? So we covered the best financing strategies, we've covered a little bit about your story, getting into everything, but I know from attending your seminars, going through the coaching program, we've learned a lot about, and there's a big emphasis on mindset. And I know you're big on mindset, but why would you say that's important for real estate investors?
Excellent question. So mindset is pretty much your psychology, right? How you think, what you believe. So your thoughts, your beliefs, your fears, right? Your feelings, your emotions. In my first years, like I said, I've been teaching seminars forever, right? And I started in 2011, this seminar. And I would be like, man, I gave this formula, how to become a millionaire, and somebody else pays your million off, right? And you're going to get positive cash flow. Why would these people don't buy? And I was surprised that I was upset, because I thought, well, I'm investing my time to teach these free seminars. People come in and they come again and again because I used to have them the last hour of every month. So half of the room, it usually was a repeat person, and they would come 7, 8 times, and they were still not pulling the trigger. And I was like, what is holding them back? Now, like I said, I'm a voracious reader, so I read a lot, and I had to read about it, how it works, from the point of education. Am I speaking correctly? Am I teaching correctly? Maybe I'm not, I'm a bad teacher. That's why they're not taking action. And after a while, I was like, okay, they're still not taking action. And I was keeping always reading, and I had my own morning schedule and my own way. I was always working on my mindset based on my coach. I've been coached for like, oh my gosh, 17 years by Mike Ferry organization, which is the first coach to start real estate coaching for real estate brokers. And he used to work for, believe it or not, Earl Nightingale when he was 20s, in his early 20s. So he was always emphasizing mindset. So I realized, I'm like, I think I have to bring mindset, because mindset is one of the skills of the millionaires. And and as soon as that thought came to me, I start teaching the skills of the millionaire. So my seminars now and my group coachings and all my coaching start with the mindset. What do you believe you can do this? What fears do you have? Why you think you are stuck? So we start with the mindset, with the emotions, with the psychology of it, because unless you are in line with your goal, you believe it's achievable, and you understand that, yes, there are going to be problems, because I wouldn't tell anybody, no matter how smart you are, no matter how many books you read, yes, you're going to make mistakes. And what do we say? You learn more from the mistakes than from what works well.
Mhm.
But you want to minimize the mistakes, and you want to be able to get over them easily. And that means you need to work on your mindset, on your beliefs, more than on your actually strategy. And there is a quote, I can't remember right now who says it, but I think it's from Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner. And I think he said, it's not important what you know, it's important what you know that's not so. Meaning, we have a lot of misconception, a lot of beliefs that are not helping us because we got them wrong. And as soon as I discovered that, I've always talked about mindset. What do you believe about people with money? Do you believe landlords are bad? Like, I remember having in seminars people that thought, oh, but landlords take advantage of tenants. I'm like, why would you think that? A tenant needs to live somewhere. And if you offer a great apartment, would you be a bad landlord? I mean, why would you be a bad landlord? These people make you wealthy. Wouldn't you give them the best housing? We'll just talk about remodeling a home, right? Respond immediately if they have a need, right? If something breaks. Why would you think that? And I realized right away, his mindset was landlords are bad people. Well, how do you ever become a landlord if you believe landlords are bad people?
Yeah.
Millionaires are bad people. How would you ever want to become one? No matter how much you want to, you'll never pull the trigger. So mindset is the number one thing that you want to examine, what your beliefs about investing.
What would you say is holding a lot of people back? Like, what type or what kind of mindset do you think that has that like really holds investors from getting started?
Okay, so number one, negativity. I mean, if you think everybody's out to get you, right? Oh, the realtor is going to get me, the lender, they're going to read me off, they're going to give me a high interest. You really don't trust anyone, right? So negativity, because trust is based on how you feel again. And unless you trust somebody and you're open, like, I cannot help somebody that it's completely closed. I can't. Like, you have to tell me your goals, and I'm going to share with you strategies. I'm going to work together to see what's the best for you, because we just talk about remodeling buildings. That's not for everyone. There are different strategies that will work. Somebody that has 4 kids at home and running another business, and maybe is also in school, or like, they're not going to have time to manage rehab, or they're going to want to just get investment that all they're done. Yes, I'll take less cash flow, but my building is getting paid off. It's I'm just getting already done. So, or I'll buy some condos that are easy to manage. So strategy is not the same strategy from everyone, right? But again, how do you get over it? First, you have to become aware. Awareness in psychology, they say awareness is the first step for everything. Until you become aware, you have limited beliefs, or about investing, let's say, or about working with people, or you have trust issues, or you have, until you become aware, you can fix that problem. And 50% of time, that problem disappear by just becoming aware. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I love that. So a lot of self-limiting beliefs, I think, hold people back, and then the negativity of like, I can't trust anyone. No one's gonna, and that causes them to be hesitant, and then, not even focus on what's important. I think, in your experience, like, I'm sure you've seen a lot of this. Like, what is the number one mistake you see a lot of new investors make when they start like buying 3 to 4 unit properties, or they start like getting into it?
Oh my goodness, there are so many, but I'll tell you, because this one, it's actually, everything depends on this. So remember, I think I come from the thinking of the top 5%, 1% of investors. Okay, so I
Yep.
work from millionaires backwards, right? So I say, what's the thinking of the millionaires? What's the thinking of the people that made it? And I do work with them. I mean, I have 2 clients that are on the 500 Forbes list, so I know how they think, right? Like highly, highly, highly successful people in every industry that have big businesses, and their thinking is so different than others. It's unbelievable when you start seeing how the trust level, how their approach is completely different. So again, what's the number one reason? People think that the investor should be smart.
Oh, I think I lost you. Oh no. Can you hear me? Oh no, we made it this far. Hang on. Oh, there you go. I think I hear you now. Oh, okay. Are you back? I think you're back.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Can you hear
perfect.
me?
Sorry, it cut off. It cut off when you said the number one mistake investors make is they think they need to be, and then literally right when you said the thing they need to be, it cut off right there. So can you go?
Okay.
Can you go back?
So they think they have to buy something cheap. Like they have to buy the cheapest 3-4 flat that they can find in the whole city of Chicago, let's say. And that's the biggest mistake. And why? Well, we make money 5 ways in real estate compared to any other investment. And number one is through using leverage. So if I'm using an FHA and I'm taking $1 million loan, pretty much I'm controlling $1 million asset with 900 and 650,000 of the bank's money. I'm bringing 35,000 dollars, right? And I'm controlling $1 million asset. And of course, most of the time I try to get the seller to pay the closing costs. So I'm not even bringing that cash. I like to use full leverage and keep as many reserves as I can. And that's what I teach my clients: keep as many reserves as you can in cash. So what happens is, like I said, there are 5 ways we make money: leverage, tax deduction, equity, build, cash flow, the amount of cash flow, and appreciation. So let's take 2 investors. So investor A, both of them are approved for $700,000. One says, hey, I want to buy the cheapest 4 flat I can find. And they go to the same realtor. And the realtor says, well, I found you a $400,000 property in this far away from the downtown. I mean, it's not close to any train station, not really shopping around, no nothing, but hey, it's only $400,000. And now the guy that got the proof for $700,000 say, hey, I want the best that you can get me for the max that I can get. And the realtor says, hey, I was able to find you in the closest to downtown. I was able to find you. It's almost tear down, not tear down, but it needs to be rehabbed. It's only 5, but you'll have to put at least 200 in. So it's going to be 700 altogether. But oh my gosh, when you're good. And now you have the 400,000 guy that says, oh, I'm buying it for 3, I'm putting 100 in and I'll be at 4 and I'm safe because I have a small mortgage, versus the guy that's 7 and that guy is 7 is going to pay more. Well, let's analyze here. The 300,000, he buys 3, he puts 100 in, so he puts less updates. This guy buys for 5, puts 200 in, he has a lot more updates. The rents on the 700, you are closer to downtown. Imagine the rents are a lot higher versus this guy. So the cash flow, even though the mortgage is higher, usually the higher the property is, believe it or not, especially if you do a renovation or conventional, your cash flow is higher. It's proportionally higher. So I have more cash flow, let's say by $1,000 a month. And now I'm making 1,000 more than this guy. Meanwhile, if my roof breaks or this guy's roof breaks, let's say we have the same square footage, it costs me the same. Any new expense, it's absolutely the same expense. If a tenant gets out, we both have 1 month, vacancy. Meanwhile, again, at the end of the year, I get tax deduction. I have tax deduction, depreciation, interest, all the tax deduction possible, the interest, the tax, property tax, insurance, that are much higher than this guy, which means I'm going to get a lot of money back at the taxes, and which offsets my cash flow, which is higher than this gentleman, right? I'm making 12 grand more a year. I'm getting maybe 10,000 back at not that I don't pay any tax on the cash flow, but I'm getting maybe another 10 grand at the end of the year back, versus this guy gets 5 because his property is so cheap. So I'm making cash flow. I'm getting more taxes back. Now my tenants are paying a 700,000 property off versus these guys paying off 400,000. And historically, property doubled every 10 years. Well, let's say in our lifetime, they double every 20 years. Now in 20 years, my property is paid off, and well, it's not paid off, but it's worth 1.4 million. This guy said 400 it's worth 800. Now you tell me how smart it is to buy small.
Yep.
And this is one example. I'll give you another example. I have people that have $1 million houses, 700,000 houses, and they come to me and they say, I want to buy an investment. I say, what would you like? Well, I would buy a condo. I would like to buy a condo. I say, great. You know, what type of financing? Oh, no, I'm going to buy cash. I have 100,000 cash. I'm going to buy 100,000 cash condo. I'm like, okay, so you have a $1 million house. You have, you know, multiple six-figure jobs. So you're in the highest tax bracket possible. And, you know, you have a lot of expenses, and you are going to get something for cash that's small, that you get no tax deductions. You are paying nothing off. You're getting no tax deduction. You are getting very little equity, very little cash flow, because how much cash flow can you get from that? And a lot of times I shock them, because I say, you're thinking it's upside down. I say, you should buy the $1 million building and buy the 100,000 condo to live in.
And it's interesting because even like for condos, I think for you to get the same results you can for a 3 to 4 unit building, you would need, like, if you're financing, you would need like 30, 40, 50 condos, because they all cash flow like 100 a month, if that, maybe, right? Where with a 3 to 4 unit property, we're talking like 2,000 to 4,000 or 5,000 a month if you do it right. So yeah, that's,
and if you get the right interest rate, yes. So, but
get the right,
the building, it's almost impossible not to get close to $2,000 a month in cash flow. And with 25,000, 30,000 down payment, I mean, you control that kind of, you get the money back in a year and a half or 2 years. I mean, there is no better investment than that. And it's easy to self-manage, because now you have a building that's pretty much new appliances, new HVAC, new roof, new plumbing, electric. So now you don't have many expenses like maintenance issue. And when you have it all designed, you know, latest design, washer, dryer, central air, you're going to get, you know, the high-end tenant, the one that makes, you know, 6 figures, that easily affords the unit. So you'll have no problem with payments or collecting payments. So again, it gives you time back. You put the time in up front, put the effort in, find the right property. Because, you know, let's make it easy. Let's be fair here. It's not like every property will work that way, right? You have to buy the right property. You have to put the right things in. You need to know how to increase the value, because if you just buy a 4 flat and you change the same kitchen, keep the same bathroom, and you do nothing new there, you're not really raising the value by a lot, and you're not raising the rents by a lot. You pretty much have to take an apple and make it a pear to increase the value.
And yeah, right. And like I love that. Like, what are some little things that you found that have increased the most value when like turning the apple fruit into a dragon fruit, as we say?
Very good question. So number one is laundry. Let's say, even if you have a unit like what I do with my group coaching right now, we have a class where we say, go back to your properties. And they learn about all the upgrades, and say, with what you are, what can you do today? And a lot of times it's just adding washer dryer per unit, which can add at least $200 per unit. Imagine if you have a 400 unit building and now you add 4 washer dryer. Yes, it's going to cost you probably $3,000 per unit to add it. But if you're putting it next to a bathroom where the plumbing is already in there, you're just pretty much tying into the plumbing that exists, right? So you're not putting a new stack. It's not going to be a lot. It's going to be maybe 3, maybe 3,500. Let's be, you know. So you are putting in 12 to 13, 14,000 in, but now you are getting $800 extra, and it can be as much as $250 a month. So you get, you know, $8,000 to $1,000 a month extra. You're getting, you know, 10 to 12 grand in the first year. You pretty much, you got your investment back, but the value of your property,
the value of the property goes up
10x at least.
Yep. When we were looking for condos, we were looking at a price point that what we found was consistently like they didn't have washer and dryers. And I know this wasn't multi-units, but at the time we were just, you know, looking for a place. And then everything that had washer and dryers immediately had like 20, 30,000 more in value. But those were the way nicer. We realized at that threshold, that's like where we wanted to be. And yeah, that's a lot of tenants are the same way. Like there needs to be a washer and dryer in the unit. Like that's a huge value add.
So number one. Number two, if you change the kitchen, make sure you do full set of appliances, because you are going to be surprised how many kitchens have only a fridge and a stove. So if you want to do the built-in microwave, the dishwasher, that will just those are going to increase the value of the rent. And then an open kitchen with the island or peninsula. Oh my goodness. That eliminates the need of a dining room, because a lot of the young couples or roommates, they don't have a dining room table. They don't need a dining room table. They grew up on the family's island, right? And or they went, to college, and they stayed in these beautiful dorms with the whistles and bells, right? The latest whistles and bells. So that's what they expect. So you get these young professionals as tenants that get all they need, and a new kitchen done the right way with an island. Oh my gosh, that can increase rent by $400 or $500. But again, you have to look at the design. You cannot have just 5 cabinets.
Right.
You have to have
and knowing what works. Yeah, like knowing what works and what doesn't, like having that open kitchen concept, the island. And like I had one client who she really messed up. She was buying a 3-unit, and in one of the units she went personal on the design, meaning like she wasn't even going to live in it. She was going to live in the basement, but she was like, she kind of put her own, like, this is what I think would look good. And then of course tenants were coming in and they were like, I don't like this. Like it wasn't neutral enough in terms of design and color. And so they had to actually like go back and, paint different colors, maybe like change out the cabinets. Like it was pretty expensive because she went, so that's also true. Like make it look neutral and make it make sense,
Yes, you point out on something that I want to bring up. I always say you have to realize that you have a homeowner hat and an investor hat. So when you are the investor, even if you're buying as owner occupant a 3-4 flat that in a year you're going to move out, you are not buying it for you. Or even if you move out in 2 years, it's not for you. You want to choose the location and the finishes inside from the investor point of view, from their hat. So I always say, remember which hat you are wearing. And I point out, and because I know people are visual, right? And we remember that, we don't remember words. So if you remember, hey, I'm the investor, it doesn't matter. Let me see which rentals online are for this rent the quickest, what are rented the top dollar. I'm not going to do gray cabinets or purple cabinets. I'm not going to do accent walls, because again, people, I don't know what furniture they have. Let them put their accent through the art and their couch and whatever. The bathrooms. You also have to think about classical colors, designs that can hold your design a long time. Again, you cannot be too personal. I mean, I've seen this, you're not going to believe this, new construction building in the north side. This is about 3-4 years. So I'm working with a 1031 exchange client. We sold this 7-unit and we're buying something newer. So my client wanted some like less units, 30-year fix. He's tired of the commercial loan. He says, I'd rather deal with 4 tenants. I'll leave move in one. No, he couldn't move in one because it was a 1031, but he was like, I'm going to live in this, buy these only 4 tenants or 3 tenants, whatever. So we go in, brand new construction. And we walk in and the cabinets are the rustic design from like 25 years ago. Like if you have the one with the black lines in between, then you have black granite tops and black appliances, and it was painted like an orange color, which was not the problem, but the bathrooms were the old stone design, like the little long narrow tiles, old style design. And we're in shock, like we're looking at each other like, is this a joke? I mean, this is a building built 25 years ago, right? Like we're looking at the realtor, the listing agent is there. It's like, no, it's brand new. I said, wait, you can't. I mean, where did he even find those tiles, right? You know what I'm saying? They don't have them Home Depot. And he's like, no, he's been building forever. I said, how long this man has been building? He's like, oh my gosh, he started 35, 40 years ago, but then he stopped during COVID and he restarted now. So what happened, this guy remembered what was on style 25 years ago. Into 2005 or 20 years ago, whatever he was building early 2000, then he left the country, came back, and he got back in, but he went for the same finishes. And I told the agent, I said, I'm sorry, but I mean, if I'm going to make you an offer on this, because I understand, it has the new kitchens, baths. He says even the closets, instead of having the long ones, he did a square cabin, the short, more narrow cat. I said, I'll have to give you 100,000 less because we'll need to redo all the kitchens, all the bathrooms. I mean, we need to change. Like, I could not believe the way the man designed it. So it's really, really important to understand that when you are building, you're building for the future. You are building what's newest, include the newest design, the latest, and not too particular. Like 3-4 years ago, they were installed gray cabinets. I told all my clients, do not put gray cabinets, but they're in style. I said, great paint, great cabinets, great counters. Don't you think it's a little bit too much gray? I said, people are going to, and now a lot of those clients are painting the cabinets white. Now they're spending the money because they chose to go with the cabinets. I said, that's too particular, is going to go out.
So you want to be like ahead of this style, but not too much, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like, not like you're trying too hard to be, 30 years in advance, but also you don't want to be too behind with it. Yeah.
No, go with classic things that are always in stock. Go with like bathrooms, geometrical tiles, right? Octagonal or something marble looking. Go with porcelain. Porcelain, you cannot go wrong because you always think maintenance, like, how easy is to maintain. So you are not going to spend a lot of money, right? And it's going to look good, both design and quality. So, and instead of putting marble or who knows in the bathrooms, which doesn't do well, and you have to, want to do a lot of maintenance on marble, but you can do porcelain that looks like marble. That bathroom is going to be good for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
As long as you are smart how you design it.
Yeah.
And you get the cabinets and lighting.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, I have one more question because I appreciate. There's so many different directions we can go, but what advice would you give to any new investors that are like starting out and they want to get to that same place that you've already reached and you've helped so many other people? Like, what advice would you give? It
starts with the goals. So it's not a blanket advice. So this is what I like every person that listens to this. Everything I say, it works if you have a certain goal, right? So it starts with your goal. Remember, investor hat or the occupant hat, right? Then the same thing here when you're investing. What's your goal? And not what's your goal this year. You want to think long term. You want to have the long term vision. Say, okay, where do I want to be when I retire? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And my investments have to, because hopefully, they're investing for long term, right? So you want to invest for the long term. It says, what's my goal network wise? What's my goal cash flow wise? Because most of people don't go with these goals because nobody's teaching them. Most of people don't know that they don't want to. But remember, realtors are not trained to teach investors how to invest. So you start with your goals. Like I said, you start from the future backwards, and he says, okay, I want a net worth of $1 million or $2 million. I want a cash flow of these many thousands a month. Okay, now from there on backwards, what can I qualify for? So then you talk to the lender and say, okay, what's the most that I can qualify for a 3-4 unit building? What are the programs? And today, we're very lucky to have 2 programs: the conventional 5% down, which has been available only since November, and I'm sure as soon as the market will really recover,
it's gonna go away probably. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because it's been away. Like we had it on only for a few years, and it was taken away in 2018 or 2019. So it like usually they bring it back when there are not enough sales, and then they take it away because the government is not the government, but the feds, the banking industry, they know that these are investors that are taking advantage of these loans, right? So they know that, and you have to be smart. So do that if you can use that, and remember, based on your net worth, take the highest that you can in the best neighborhood that you can, right? And when I'm saying best neighborhood I can, I'm talking about it can be an up and coming neighborhood. They're opening up a new train station. They're opening up, something new. You heard that Amazon is opening up a new thing, or City of Chicago is opening up a new train station. You know that more is coming. If be next to the hottest neighborhood, that's like latest hottest neighborhood, right? Because that's where the prices are going to go up the most. The rents are going to go up the most because people will want to be close to, let's say, Bucktown, West Loop, for the restaurants, or like just as an example, but they can't afford to live in those neighborhoods. So they're going to always go into the next neighborhood. So get the most you can, get a renovation loan. Think of that, like if you have the time, if you have the reserves to pay the mortgage, during the renovation, take a renovation loan. So this way you set yourself up to have the highest rent possible. You build in equity. You don't have to wait for the properties to go up or to be paid off. And less maintenance, remember, less maintenance, more tax deductions. Goal. So start backwards from the goal, and then you're very, 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 very important, your team. So because you need people that are investors themselves, so they made the mistakes that they can help you avoid, right? Work with a lender that again knows the programs. They can push you quickly in another one if something happens. They know how to sidestep any booby trap, right? Like in the loan, in the with the appraiser, whatever happens, they know how to creative people. So, working with people that have been in the business for a while, that know they're doing that, investors, that will benefit you tremendously as an investor. When you buy your own home, you can buy with anyone because they're going to give the best rate, and it's the home that you love. It's nothing complicated. But when you buy investment, remember, you are buying to make money. You're buying for cash flow. How many people are investors that truly have cash flow? How many, this is what you're going to focus on. Remember from my story, make sure you have positive cash flow, maybe not the day when you buy it, because a lot of time properties have long-term tenants with low rates, but the rates, when you change the tenant or you increase rent, should market rates, should give you positive cash flow.
Yeah. And I think to that point, having a strong lender, realtor, and like in some states, attorneys, and even if you don't need an attorney or not, the point is like having a good team around you that understands like how investors think, how to get to that, like with the realtor, like you said, knowing how to invest, getting to that point, and then the lender to the programs. Because I talk to a lot of even loan officers like don't even know half the programs I talk about, which is pretty funny. Like so many, because it's exactly actually the same as agents. Like we're trained to only know like the same three, which is like conventional, FHA, VA, and like that's pretty much it, right? So any of the unique like construction or like even DSCR loans, like all these like programs that are out there for investors, built for investors, to be able to like I have so many clients. I actually have lenders referring me, like loan officers that are at like, I won't name the banks, but like, very like popular banks that can't do the deal. And
Right.
so as a result, because they don't have like, they don't know, and it takes more work. And that's, I think, why people don't want to do it. Same thing with FHA 203Ks and home style. Like a lot of people say they can do it, but they won't actually do it, and they don't know how because they know it's a lot of work and they don't want to put it. They'd rather just go for someone who's buying a house, because that's quicker, it's easier, less stress. So I agree 100%. Any final thoughts before we wrap up though, Lumi?
Remember the investor hat.
Yep.
Remember buy up to 4. And good luck. I mean, see you, as Zig Ziglar would say, see you at the top.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you
Lumi,
are all invited to my free seminars, because I have a lot of free seminars in person in Chicago and online. So you are all welcome.
Yep. So I'll put your link in the description, Lumi, all your information, everything, as well as the seminar link so people can get access. But if you guys found value in this, comment below, let us know. Thank you so much, Lumi, for being here, and we'll do another one soon. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right.